Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. Welcome to the very first of the SmartWeb series. My totally non-technical views of the SmartWeb and everything that's going around in there. In these short knowledge clips, I will try to create non-technical deep dives into the SmartWeb and why it matters. But before I start, please notice that this is by no means investment advice, right? These are knowledge clips aimed at sharing my passion about the SmartWeb. So before we can even try to understand what the smart web is and really why it matters, we really need to take a couple steps back. And we need to go back into, let's say, 1969, because that was the first year where a message was sent over the internet, or at least later we called it the internet. That was a very important year, so keep that in the back of your heads while we're going through this knowledge clip. Then in 1983, a very big and arguably the last big update was done on the internet, laying the foundations of the internet and how we use it today. And then in the 90s, the World Wide Web came into existence. So this is the web that we use daily, right? And we all know how it works. Or maybe we don't know how it works, but we know how to use it. And that's good enough for us. Again, I cannot stress enough how important it is to keep those dates in the back of your head. The World Wide Web was first created in the early 90s. And the World Wide Web gave rise to the first era of, let's call it the first era of the internet, which was the internet of information. My take on things. So, as a business, you could pretty much build a website, which was, your digital brochure. So you would give your digital brochure to your clients, and you would, if you had a very good developer, you would have a digital version as your website. And back then, hacks already happened, right? So the worst thing that could happen was that a hacker would hack your website and replace your content with, well, the more experienced viewers know what happened with adult content. That was the worst thing that could happen, and that happened quite often. So already in the early days of the World Wide Web, we realized that the World Wide Web was flawed from the start. But, well, what do, right? So you patch the software and you try to literally put band-aid on every possible breach that you have. And that's what we've been doing for years and years and years. We should have known back then already that what we were doing wasn't good enough. But, well, we rather focused on patching and solving problems instead of creating something that's better. That said, new protocols were added to the World Wide Web, and this allowed for something amazing to happen. Because these protocols, they allowed us to suddenly communicate with each other in a totally different way. We could upload photos, we could buy stuff online, we could leave reviews, we could actually communicate with each other, we could build a whole network of friends. And this gave rise to the many tech giants that we know today. They grew exponentially in a very short period of time. These changes, they also gave rise to what I would like to call, well, maybe either an internet of social interaction or maybe even better, an internet of data. Because a very big change happened because suddenly we, the users, the people, we created data footprints. Before that, most people in the world didn't really have a data footprint, meaning that they didn't leave data anywhere. Well, at least not a significant amount. So suddenly businesses got many, many new insights about us because we were continuously feeding them with our most intimate thoughts. All this data allows businesses to make very specific profiles out of you and influence your behavior in a way that benefits them. And we've already seen many examples where not only businesses but also governments and politicians influence big groups of people, and well, that would otherwise without the data would not have been possible. So Facebook and Google, they know your friends better than you do. And that is quite new, that's quite different. The apps that we use on a daily basis, they're not free, right? So you pay with your data. You pay with your personality. And in my opinion, that is a very high price to pay. And I'm not saying that these companies are evil in any way, right? They just use the opportunities in a very smart way. They build completely new business models around the new options that the World Wide Web gave them. And, well, to be honest, I would have probably done the same. But now let's go back to the beginning because do you remember that I said that the World Wide Web was pretty much built in the digital stone age? And that already in the era of Internet of Information, we realized that the World Wide Web really wasn't used for those use cases. It wasn't built for those use cases. Well, imagine what we're doing just now. The Internet itself was never properly built for an era of data. And we see the shocking results of this every day. I dare to bet that 90% of you have been hacked in the past. That your data have been sold somewhere on the dark web, or that you had a virus on your computer, maybe a Trojan horse. And if you think that you've never been a victim of this, well, then you're either lying or you probably never noticed. So I think I don't need to tell you anything about data breaches and hacks and well, we see them every day, right? They're literally in the news every day. And a notable one was, for example, the Aadhaar hack, where the personal details of 1.1 billion people was exposed just simply due to a flaw in an API. Another famous one is the Marriott Hotels hack, where the data of 500 million people was exposed. And you really don't want this data to be sold on the dark web. And yet it's probably out there. Again, I cannot stress enough that this is due to the fact that we use the internet in a way that it was never designed for. And yet we just accept it. We put band-aid on it and we move on. Well, that's pretty unacceptable if you ask me. So by now, we're not there yet because you might argue that we entered even a new era of the internet. With the rise of 4G, 5G, and obviously smartphones, we entered into an era of well, an era of apps. And from a face value perspective, this internet of applications is very different because we do everything within an app. But to me, this really does just masks the problem, right? We feel safer when we communicate in an app, but what really happens? Let me try to explain. I read an interview with a social hacker who showed that when on a public Wi-Fi, it is fairly easy to hack into your phone and see what others are doing. And yet, wherever we go, when we travel, we use the public Wi-Fi, right? So when you open an app and send a message to someone, this message is literally sent over, kind of like an internet highway. Apparently, it's fairly easy to intercept these messages. Think of it as if you were like trying to cross a 5-lane highway during peak hours. So then your message reaches a server, and from the era of data, we already know that these servers are not very reliable. And on these servers, you don't really know what's happening with your data. Very often, the data is literally duplicated and it stays there forever. It might be sent to a different server until eventually your message reaches the person that you're trying to reach. So, do you see what's going wrong here? The internet highway, the servers that cannot be trusted, servers that copy your messages and keep them forever, and then the mobile phone, the person that you're trying to send a message to, that, well, you never really know if you can trust it. There might be a virus on that one as well, right? So even in this very new era that we're living in today, nothing really has changed. We are still using the World Wide Web in a way that it was never designed for. And then there's a whole other big problem with today's web, right? So many hacks happen, but and I can already tell you that this hacking industry is a billion-dollar industry, but we're currently facing another problem. It has to do with piracy, obviously. So it's estimated that the piracy cost of the TV and film industry alone will cost approximately $53 billion by 2022. So this does not include pirated games, software, music, or other type of content. And you know what? I actually find it somewhat understandable that people today still download illegal games, illegal books, because, well, whatever you buy from whatever platform, you will be the only one who can actually enjoy it. you will never truly own those assets. Because if you download a game from your PlayStation, you pay big bucks for it, but if you can't give it away to your friend, or if you can't resell it, well, then it's still not yours, is it? What you literally do is you just buy a license to use it, a very expensive license. But now something really interesting is happening because we're entering kind of like two different eras of the internet, or well, to use blockchain terms, right? Where the internet is forking into two different internets. The first one we all know, which is the Internet of Things. The other one, quite interesting, would be called, let's call it the Internet of Value or the Internet of Wealth. These again will give rise to a whole new bunch of amazing applications, amazing businesses. We will be able to, open the front door of our house with our phones. We ask Alexa when our flight to Mexico leaves, and we watch our children sleep from our living room. This is beautiful, right? This is amazing. And businesses jump into these trends blindly. But wait a minute. Do we really want others to know or to be able to find out that we are leaving to Mexico? And how many of you would be okay with the idea of the possibility that your neighbor can hack into your Wi-Fi and watch your baby sleep? Well, let me surprise you. This actually already happened. And again, this is due to the fact that we build our so-called smart devices on kind of like a system or a World Wide Web that was never designed for this kind of use case. We can no longer accept this sort of nonsense. Then the Internet of Value is a whole new ballgame, right? And there are already plenty of blockchain businesses preparing for digital ownership of assets, for example. You can already buy and sell tickets and resell them without duplicating them. You can own special digital artworks and you can trade them. And this is really lovely. This will allow us to enjoy the world in a totally different way. This will allow us to give power back to the creators. But again, do we trust the old World Wide Web enough to actually trade and own digital assets, to put our hard worked money in there? There have been thousands of examples already of people losing their digital assets already just due to phishing, hacks, or bugs in APIs. You cannot trust wallets that are built into browsers as long as they are still running on the old World Wide Web. This is still not secure, and the iteration of the internet is just another patch. It's not good enough, or at least not in my opinion. So, to summarize, we need a new kind of web, a place where privacy is the default setting, where you can have full control over your data and where you decide on whether you sell your data or not, a place where you know that your neighbor cannot watch your children sleep, and a place where you can securely store your digital assets, your books, your artwork, your music. We really don't need a World Wide Web anymore. What we need is a smart web. And the beauty of this is that this new smart web was recently released and is actually already available for download on your phone. And as the World Wide Web back in the 90s, it's still very early stages. Businesses are just now starting to build businesses on top of this smart web. In the next few years, we will be seeing many new businesses thrive on this new internet that is built for you. Or maybe I should say, this new web that is built for you. There's a great community of people, both technical and non-technical, that are working on this. And I can imagine that, this is a true grassroots movement. All is very similar to, when people were building the World Wide Web a long time back. So what I want to say to you is, you know, join this great adventure. Join us. We can do this together. Explore all the opportunities this new smart web has to offer for you. Try to see if you can understand bits and pieces of the technology behind it and engage as well with as many people as you can. Download the Elastos browser and learn and explore this whole new world. You will love it. You can be part of something great. So again, thank you so much for your time. And you will find all sorts of cool links in the comment section, including a link to the Telegram group where you can meet a lot of like-minded people. So I hope to see you soon, and thank you so much for your time. Stay safe and stay healthy. Cheers.